Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, July 1st. Oh my goodness, 2021. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Welcome to the show this week. I'm Norm, and we're halfway through the year. So this is a July 4th weekend episode. Happy Independence Day for those of you in the States, in the United States, who celebrate that. It's happening on a Sunday this year, which means none of us get 4-day weekends. Some of us maybe get Monday off. I'll tell you, personal gripe. Daycare for my son, it was off the entire week, and they don't discount you for a week. You're still paying the full tuition, but now I got to deal with a toddler. Where's the freedom there, Jeremy Williams?
Something tells
you deal with that?
Something tells me the scam is not strong enough for you to quit. You're going right back to that daycare as fast as you can.
I'll tell you, this is one of those things where complaining about it on Twitter does nothing for me. I would not get any special perks. No.
I'm great. And less reverb. Love the track. Last week, we ragging on the definition,
Whoa.
Not ragging, questioning whether or not Will's theme met the definition of dubstep. Somebody in YouTube said maybe less reverb should be named Less Respect. Because he's getting less. I think his music is fantastic, and I love it. Yeah. Thank you for making it.
He's a contest winner. So respect the contest winner. And, Will's not here this week, so we don't get to hear that quote unquote dubstep track. We do have a special guest this week, though. Steve Lin, a friend of the show, longtime friend of Tested. Good to see you, Steve. Good to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be back. And actually, Discord, we're giving everybody a summer vacation next week. So we got summer break for a week.
Are you really?
Right. Yeah.
A whole week? That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a little time off for folks because we've been working hard.
Is that because most of your employees are so young that they are so used to summer break?
Whoa, there's in there. Jeremy, your mic's a little hot, so I'm going to...
Oh, sorry. That's just my attitude.
Yes. We do skew a little younger, but it's really just to make sure everyone takes time off because it's been really challenging during the pandemic for people to find excuses or reasons to do that, and this is sort of hey, everybody take some time.
And this weekend, we know a lot of people are doing traveling. In fact, Kishore is off this week because he's seeing family. He's doing stuff with family, and I think that's great. We're vaccinated here, and we're going to follow the CDC guidelines. But I think when Kishore gets back, we're absolutely going to have a conversation because we have questions. I certainly have questions. We have questions in this household about what things look like with the looming Delta variant, what should be the precautionary measures, the doctors we follow on social media, the UCSF doctors, people are recommending extra precautions. We're trusting people when we see them in person that they've been vaccinated, but for people who don't, for whatever reason, we're still keeping our masks on. We're in places indoor where we can't tell how many people have been vaccinated. So just be careful, I think, is the general thing, right? We're going to see people this weekend. We're going to try to meet with some friends. It's one of those things that we're all hungry for it. And at least in the Bay Area here, we think that enough people have been vaccinated that we feel comfortable doing so. Do either of you have weekend plans to see folks, see friends? Are you building up more confidence to see friends and family that you haven't for a long time?
I've been in a couple small groups, everybody being vaccinated, couple indoor, couple outdoor. The biggest thing for me is actually adjusting to the fact that when you're talking to someone, other people are talking around you, and it's really hard to filter that out. It's almost like I forgot how to do that when I've been in group settings. And so we were in a group of probably 8 people, and everybody started talking a lot louder because they were trying to compensate for the other people that they were hearing. And you can't mute their window or anything. They're just right next to you. So that was probably the biggest revelation we saw when we got together as a group.
I mean, that's an old social phenomenon, right? The rising volume of a party and then the drop. I was like, that used to be a whole thing, if I remember what parties are correctly. Uh, but yeah, I absolutely, I don't think I've been in a group that big where the multiple conversations have happened. But definitely reaching out to more folks to reconnect, not just to invite them to be a guest on the podcast, although it's a perfect excuse to catch up. And we're going to hear about what's been going on in your world, Steve, in just a little bit. But we're going to roll in to some news. Quick news before we talk about the big story of this week, which is going to be Windows 11. But have you guys been watching Marvel Studios' Loki?
Oh,
Loki.
I mean, I watched the first episode right along with everybody else, but then my 14-year-old son surprisingly lost interest in it. Said it just wasn't for him. There was nothing there for him to latch onto, and so it's just been like just floating out there. And I don't have that regular schedule with the family to watch it, so I haven't watched any of them since the first one. But I don't mind if you spoil everything because I've paid that's the price I pay for coming on the podcast like this and not having seen it. So please spoil away.
We're not going to spoil. I'm not going to bring on the spoiler light. Fourth episode, as we're recording this, did debut last night, but it does sound like I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but you guys, your family were into WandaVision as a family, and into Falcon and the Winter Soldier as a family, being big Marvel fans, feeling like these things were important to the continuity of that universe. I'm curious why. Or what is it about this show that has not grabbed you or your family?
Yeah,
and Steve, have you been watching it?
Yeah, I've been watching it, and so I'm up to episode 3. And after that episode, I kind of looked over at my partner. We're like, "What was that?" But we'll watch 4 for sure. I mean, we'll keep watching. But yeah, Jeremy, I'd be curious to see what made you bounce.
Well, I love the aesthetic. Like for me, it's all about the way the show looks, and I can understand if that's not the top priority of a kid. I think that he's looking more for action sequences and plot twists, and I assume that you just gotta be a little more patient for those to come. But I don't know. Is it an action show?
It's not. It's not an action show. There's bits of action. There's definitely they check the box with some choreography. Loki, as a character in Thor, and even the Avengers, has he plays with knives and he has like magic powers. But I think you're right that this is a straight up science fiction show. Like I think you got to preface that because not many of the Marvel shows, even when you talk about Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a sci-fi setting, Guardians of the Galaxy is sci-fi in the way Star Wars is sci-fi. And it's a fantasy adventure, right? With ships and spaceships and space stations and aliens. But this is science fiction in theme, in topic, when it's talking about timelines and time loops and divergent timelines. And it's kind of the thing that I assume Marvel was hoping that the hardcore fans would be really into, because fans love theorizing and love like all the world building and possibilities of incorporating sci-fi themes into a show like this. And people have been very hungry for more Loki, just a secondary character or the villain in previous Marvel films. So to give 6 hours, 6 episodes of screen time, that's a lot of Tom Hiddleston acting. But I'm also with you. I think the pacing of this show is off. The pacing feels slower, even though things happen, and there's a little bit of momentum, but feels like it's a 2-hour movie stretched out to 6 hours so far. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Jeremy. I love the aesthetic. Like Miss Minutes is probably my favorite character. And when you're looking at the props and all the things that they use to build like Mobius's like projector and the computers and everything. It's and you're matching it to what they were using in the real world to as the base. It's like, oh, well, now those are all going to sell on eBay because everybody wants to
all the Nagras.
All
the real recorders.
Yeah. It's like
all that mid-century spy stuff. Yeah, like there's a lot of that brutalist. I mean, and a lot of that kind of like. My problem with the show is that, like Falcon and Winter Soldier, where it was pushing the boundaries for a Marvel show, it still felt, and we talked about this on the podcast, it still felt like the after-school special version of like an HBO show. Like when you talk about a TV that addresses the very real and relevant topic of race relations, um, like Watchmen is the high bar that were mixed really interesting themes and relevant themes and didn't hold back with the superhero genre. And every time I was watching an episode of Falcon Winter Soldier, I was like, they're pulling back. They have to make it a little more Marvel Studios friendly. And credit to them for even tackling and approaching some of those themes. They did some of that stuff pretty successfully with like the character of Isaiah Bradley, but it still felt like they were holding back. And here, I feel like they're holding back with how weird the show could get. Some of it still feels like the premise. Yeah, I give them like full credit. It's like a really fantastic look, production design, the fact that they took a character out of magic, a world of magic, and put him in the world of science fiction. Great, but it's not the mystery box show I kind of hoped it would be. Like it didn't. Episodes weren't ending, leaving me with lots of wild theories and more questions. Like it wasn't as convoluted maybe as I was looking for a mystery box type show to then to unravel and pay off later on.
Yeah, I mean, I get the feeling that there's some stuff that maybe just pays off later on, like ex post facto, right? There's a relation to Doctor Strange or whatever it is coming up. Like, oh, I remember when that thing happened in Loki. And Jeremy, your drop off after episode 1, you're not alone. They were showing the viewership from episode 1 to 3 taking a bigger plunge than WandaVision or Falcon and Winter Soldier. So it didn't catch as many people as the previous 2.
And you're talking about a character that's been in the MCU longer than either Falcon Winter Soldier or Wanda and Vision, and also more beloved in terms of, I'm sure, in terms of merchandise, in terms of awareness. Like Loki, Tom Hiddleston Loki is an icon in the MCU, and somehow they have not made it as compelling. And I think part of it is them. I think they're holding themselves back. I think they are not giving the audience enough credit to allow for more weirdness, more. I mean, especially it's a show that's released week by week. It's not a Netflix all drop, right? They're counting on conversation starters, and they're counting on an HBO model, like people to be on the social media and on Reddit, posting memes and theories and all this stuff. And it's I'm curious if this is Marvel fatigue after 3 shows kicking in. Also, we do have Black Widow coming out in a week and a half's time now, July 9th, and the reviews for that seem pretty good. So I'm hoping that this isn't just a new like lower bar for Marvel.
What about the comedy level? Because Owen Wilson really is a comedic actor. He's one of my favorites. I'm a huge fan of all his work with Wes Anderson and outside of it. I don't know like of a film he's been in very recently that's been like a huge hit. But so maybe I don't know if he's now trying to move away from comedy, or is to me like that should be, they could do more with that, at least from what I saw in the first episode, is in terms of making him a really straight guy to some comedic situations.
I think that's a great role for him. And I don't think it's devoid of comedy at all. I think it's actually a more nuanced comedic role. The way he toys with Loki is funny, but you're right. He plays the straight man. The director, Kate Herron, of all 6 episodes, said you're never going to hear him say the classic Owen Wilson, wow, in this series. But that's fine. I think he's outgrown that. It's not a Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson joint. But you do get a very confident portrayal, and I think he's really great as the Mobius character.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed his performance, and it's one of the things I kind of look forward to in the episode. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens in episode 4.
So episode 4 has dropped. We're not going to go into spoilers, but I will give you the one heads up. If you're listening to this and you have not seen episode 4 yet, this is an episode with an after credits stinger. So don't miss that. Not all the Marvel TV shows have it. I think Falcon Winter Soldier did have, it was like the penultimate episode had the after credit stinger. This one, halfway through this, or a little bit more halfway through the series, has an after credit stinger. It's only 6 episodes. It's going to go by, we're, 2/3 the way past this, done with the show already. Only 2 more episodes left, which again, it feels like a stretched out movie more so than a Mando's length episodic series.
Well, if someone do a
Mando is.
supercut and like do a 2.5 hour version of it or something.
Yeah. Other big shows. There's so many different streaming services now. I actually, weird tangent. I got an email this morning from Apple telling me my Apple TV Plus subscription trial, the free trial that they extended right to a year and a half for folks who bought Apple hardware in now late 2019. That's going to expire for me like this weekend, and like if you continue,
right before
it's
Ted
$5
Lasso
a month. They timed it. They did that intentionally. The two shows I care about are going to be Ted Lasso season 2 and the new Foundation series, which there was a trailer for that out. It's $5 a month.
That's what I was gonna say. It's the cheapest
but it's
service.
Also $5 a month. It's like,
dude, a coffee is $5 a day. Just pay the $5.
I make coffee at home, Jeremy, or my wife and I make our coffee together at home. We don't pay for the coffee in the lockdown, and I don't know if I want to give Apple the money to not make compelling shows. I can always subscribe later, or maybe they'll do another free model. I know a lot of people are like, oh, just do it with an Apple One subscription if you're paying for storage. If you're holding you hostage for storage already, then pay the extra $10 for the music or whatever. I think it's $50 a month or something for. It's not that much, but it's a big bundle, right? It's the bundle for Apple.
Yep.
But even at $5 a month, even at $50 a year, that's the annual fee you could pay. It's like, I don't know if I want Apple in this TV game. Like, I would be more than happy to see this fail, and not have them in the trenches against Netflix and HBO and Paramount Plus and all and Amazon Prime. Like, this just seems like a hobby for them.
I don't know, man. When you used to have cable, like you probably had a line item in your bill, in your cable bill, that was like, extra fees and services, $6.99.
Yeah, right. No, this is like the FCC like tax for the cable bill.
So just
that, like, I wasn't happy about that either. I had the chance to nix that, to not watch, to have them not be in that game, then, because they haven't really impressed me. Like, they haven't put things that have been in the zeitgeist aside from Ted Lasso. They know this, and they threw money at a problem. At a business.
I thought the morning show was pretty good. They think that they had the Beastie Boys documentary.
Yeah,
put that in there. Like they have. It's like everything else. It's just like they're not about volume. They're about trying to get a few good shows, and that's why it's only $5, because they can't compete with the volume of Disney and Netflix or Hulu, anybody else.
Norm just doesn't want to help encourage more people to try it. It's like, I don't want to have all these services you're subscribed to. Just give me like 3.
Yeah, and I'm getting confused now too. Like, specials like the Beastie Boys documentary, I thought was great, and Peter Jackson has the Beatles, that whole 3-part documentary, but that's going to be on Disney Plus, and I think Apple felt like they could hire executives and they could build a team and they could throw $1 billion at content and somehow, immediately take on a Netflix, which has institutional development, really, where they're working on, by my estimate, or I believe they're probably working on over 100 TV shows at the same time, for which you get a new thing every week or every month, and way more of Netflix things have hit the nail than Apple in recent memory, even though a lot of the same creators go back and forth and have money thrown at them to develop things on Apple. I don't know. $5 a month. Also, that's money I could put toward a Paramount Plus subscription, so I can watch Picard season 2 and Lower Decks. Like, Paramount Plus has a higher on the mark, things I'm going to watch on a regular basis than Apple TV Plus.
Oh, wow.
It's true. And I think the brand of Apple doesn't do anything for me in the TV world. The fact that, like, they actually have more a bigger stranglehold on the editorial of those shows, right? Like, villains can't use iPhones. They need to be they have to. It's like, well, Disney to some extent as well, I think, in terms of the type of shows they're producing. But yeah, the look and feel of an Apple show, it's definitely doesn't feel like an HBO.
Is that true? No bad guys on Apple TV Plus use iPhones?
That's true. Yeah, you gotta protect the brands.
Wow.
Gotta protect the brands. And now they could, if Steve Jobs was still around and they're running the business, they could not allow any network to have Apple logos, right? The permission of allowing Apple devices, and everyone on the iMacs would have to have like some creaked out, fake company logo. That could be I could see that being an aggressive thing they would take for the believability of that world. Your characters aren't as cool as our characters because our heroes have Beats headphones.
That would just be so petty if they did that. It's like, you can't use their logos.
That's why I'm saying if Steve Jobs around, that's the thing he would do, because that feels like a very Steve Jobs thing to do. Okay, Paramount TV Plus. Picard season 2 got a full extended trailer. It came out about a week and a half ago, but we haven't chatted with you guys about it. As big Star Trek fans here, what'd you think?
Oh, I mean, honestly, most of this is kind of over my head because first of all, I never watched Deep Space Nine, so I don't.
Deep Space Nine,
or isn't it 7 of 9? Isn't she Voyager. From? She's from Voyager. Okay, I didn't watch either Voyager or Deep Space Nine, as established by the past 10 seconds, and so I don't really know like what's going on with her. Why is she touching her forehead? This is sort of beyond me. I don't know. It looks interesting. I love Q. I'm curious to find out what's going on. I was not blown away by the first season. I thought it was worth watching, but I wanted more from it, so I'm curious, but I'm not. This is not a can't wait for some show for me. Are you guys super excited by this trailer?
I mean, I'm excited because it's more content, right? I mean, I think Picard probably should have saved that Iron Weaver money and bought more Reskin flutes. And I realized that.
Oh my god!
A lot of people.
I want to talk about that.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, I always like the interplay between Q and Picard, and I'd be curious to see how they are addressing sort of the passage of time, especially after what happened in All Good Things. So, it's two characters that I love, and I want to see what happens with them. The 7 of 9 thing always felt like a weird insertion, but we get to learn more about what it was like for her as a child and that period that wasn't fully addressed in Voyager. So yeah, I mean, it's more Star Trek, and I'd watch it if it was just like a Tribble rolling around on the screen. So
Hypnotoad, but the Tribble version.
Yeah, pretty much.
So 7 of 9 for the first season was a really out of left field casting that made so much sense because it was about Picard's relation with the Borg and having Hugh there. Like, that was all really great. Like, world building. Like, of course, these characters who were ex-Borg would be aware of each other and have a unique perspective when dealing with the Borg. And so to continue that and to kind of build a new family out of this new crew, which is what they've done, is a weird thing, because then it feels less like they're tapping into the nostalgia engine that so much of season 1 was hyped up on. Like, what are the loose end threads from Next Generation and the movies that we get to fill in now? And now they have to be in the context of like these new characters that we were introduced in season 1 and our relationships with them, and not all of them have been very popular, right? Like, Rafi, for example. So they have to continue selling us on these new characters while at the same time promising that they're going to tap into the member berries and have guest appearances from next gen casts. And so John Delancey's Q that's the anchor point, right? The framing of the season looks to be another tapestry, where it's another going back in time to an alternate modern day for them if decisions have been made wrong. I think the line is the end of the path not taken or something, right? So it's that classic TNG episode where Picard doesn't get into the fight, doesn't get stabbed in the heart. He makes the right decision, but doesn't back his friend up, doesn't take risks, and he'll never be a commander. And that was a fun kind of alternate reality take. To do that here, they have to do it in a way that feels like it fits within the grand theme of Next Generation, the judgment of humanity and the judgment of Picard. And it can't just feel like a bottle episode of like, oh, here's another Picard looking back at his life thing. So I hope we get the robes for Q, the judgment robes.
Do we get the court? The people
with the crazy, the angry mob, right? I hope they rebuild that. And if it's a way for us to have flashbacks or a way to explore different parts of Picard's Starfleet career, then I think that's gonna go check our nostalgia boxes. Who are the next gen cast members you'd love to see make cameos this time around? If we've already saw Riker and Troy and checked in with them and heard about their family story and the tragedies there, and Data, of course, at the end of season 1, who are the ones you'd want to see here?
Well, there aren't that many left, but I mean, it'd be nice to see. Well, wasn't Geordi in the first one? Was he not in season 1 at all?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, so I mean, that'd be great. I want to see Geordi. But
yeah,
hosting an intergalactic game show.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. hosting a quiz show of the future.
that would be great. Be fun to see Wesley. Because he has a mixed. The fans have mixed feelings about the classic Wesley, but Will Wheaton has sort of become something else since then. So it'd be fun to see that.
Wesley as a father. Wesley with his own kids to deal with.
But I was thinking that the episodes of TNG with original series actors in them weren't the best episodes. Like they were great. They were draws when you saw those trailers or heard about them. You wanted to watch them, and they were like candy. But they weren't like the best episodes.
Oh, I really liked Relics.
Serious? Yeah, Relics is the definition of
what
fan
have
service.
I done?
Relics is fan service, and you got the Dyson Sphere. And Relics, you have 2 engineers, 2 miracle workers. That was like just num 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 num. Give me the greatest Scotty hits. Oh yes. Even the pilot Encounter at Farpoint, you had Aja, the oldest man in the Federation, was DeForest Kelly, was McCoy, and as like 100-something-year-old, right, walking along with Data, meeting the Enterprise, like that was great. But then really, it's Leonard Nimoy, and it's the unification, part 1 and 2, and it's like that's like Star Trek theme, right? And that feels like a thing that is part of Picard's legacy. His failure at unification, which led to the destruction of Romulus and the events of and birthed the Kelvin universe, right? Like these are the things I want to see them. Like what is Picard's legacy? I hope that as a producer that Patrick Stewart understands his character's legacy is so tied to these things that resonated with fans. The parables of like unification in Star Trek was absolutely, the Middle Eastern conflict in the real world. But what are these things that resonate to viewers and they can relate to, and how they could tie those loose ends? They have the seeds there. He has Romulans working for him as his confidants on his vineyard, right? And I do think we see more of them in the trailer. So bring them back and do more of them.
Is Patrick Stewart only signed on for 2 seasons, or have they talked about that?
It's got to be season by season case. Like he's not getting any younger, and while he's the charisma's on screen, he's definitely getting older there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so even if this is the last of Patrick Stewart we get as Picard, like I think they have to plan every season as if that's the case.
Yeah, call it the Picards or something like this.
The Picards, like the Marvels
season. Yeah. Season 3 and beyond.
You mentioned the Reskin flute. We'll go as a tangent. Hey, Jeremy, you probably haven't been following this, but there's a prop store auction going on this week. It's their big summer memorabilia auction. It's one where we went down to their warehouse and their showroom to take a look at some of these props and made some videos about them. You can watch them on the channel. But one of the videos that we did not make was about the original Reskin flute prop, along with a script for the Inner Light, Hugo Award winning Inner Light, one of the best episodes of Next Generation for sure. It sold yesterday in their auction as we're recording this. How much do you think the original Reskin flute prop, which I'll tell you is not an actual flute, it's not hollow, it has little carved divots, and it's adorned with some type of cast thing, and it's painted, but you can't actually blow through it. But how much do you think that prop sold for in this auction?
I would have to guess $90,000.
I'll tell you the estimates were in the $100,000, $150,000 range. Is that right, Steve? Around there?
I thought it was lower, but I'll have to check back. But it would.
I think estimates were around 100,000. Yeah, you said 90,000. That would be a lot of money.
Yep.
How about double that?
Wow.
$190,000.
And you're saying
buyer's premium
plus 25%. Yeah, so basically $220,000 for someone to buy this. And the auction is crazy. Like I think a Freddy Krueger, Jason mask sold for like $150,000. If you're a Back to the Future fan, the clock he has on the dashboard of the DeLorean that he hits. It's the alarm clock. So when he activates and has to go with the time machine at the end of the movie, that's for like $50,000. But yeah, classic collectors.
Indiana Jones fedora was 300,000. So, and it's a lot of money floating around.
Yeah,
These aren't NFTs. This is like a real physical thing, right?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, you know what? I think there's a lot of money, but like, I would rather people spend money to preserve and keep this than on NFTs.
Exactly.
We're missing some of the items right now. Who knows what's happening?
Yeah. I think that if you listen, there's a third day of auctions going on. Okay, we'll run through other news. There was a Shang-Chi, a full-length Shang-Chi trailer. Did you guys watch this? This is the movie coming out Labor Day weekend, I want to say, in Marvel Studios.
I thought this trailer looked great. I don't know anything about this superhero, but it speaks to the daddy issues that I have, and so right to the heart. I can't wait to watch this movie.
Your dad with the rings.
Yes. You were trained in to be a martial arts master as a child as well, and you can deal with it. And so you found a new life, a new name in San Francisco, and now your past has come to roost, and you must fulfill your destiny. I think this felt in many ways. I hate making an analogy to Black Panther because it's not like Black Panther for Asian cultures at all in the same way Black Panther was. I think Black Panther was a much bigger thing and meant more, was more meaningful. But in the way that this is almost a standalone movie and does not feel like it needs to tie into an Avengers thing. I feel like that's a refreshing take on Marvel, where not everything has to be tied to the Avengers. We did have cameos that were showed up that have now been confirmed by Kevin Feige, in that you do see a cage match between the Abomination, Tim Roth's character from the Universal Hulk movie that's still technically part of the MCU. This is the Ed Norton Hulk movie. The villain was the Abomination. He's coming back. I think he's actually going to be in the She-Hulk series as well. And Abomination's fighting Wong from Doctor Strange. So that's fun fan service. And if that's like the strongest connection we get to the MCU, I'd be happy to see just that.
Yeah, I got excited. I was like, "Is that Wong?" And then I think the only thing was there were fewer shots in San Francisco. And I think when that teaser trailer launched, everyone's like, "Oh, we know what street they're on, and we know what bus they're taking, and all this other stuff." And so we'll see
California going by Ghirardelli Square, which it doesn't actually do.
No, took a wrong turn.
I didn't catch that at all. I didn't know it was shot here. When they were shooting here, was it in the news?
It wasn't shot here.
Oh, okay.
I think they did. They did location plates here where they got like the crew to get, the backgrounds of Ghirardelli Square, but they just set dressed, it's all green screen, all shot in Atlanta, I bet, at Pinewood, Atlanta, in things mocked up to look like a Muni car.
Yeah.
You guys are fans of Lego. Both of you fans of Lego. Did you guys know about, well, first of all, you knew that Lego purchased the site BrickLink last year, right?
Yes.
In case you're unaware, Jeremy, BrickLink was the kind of the marketplace site for people to buy individual pieces and sell kits or sell parts, just part out individual pieces. So it's like it was a aftermarket place where if you, whether it's growing up, had a ton of rare Lego pieces that they no longer do the injection molding for, and you wanted to sell in like one wheel or one little painted piece, you could put it on BrickLink. Or if you're someone who wants to build a set that has been long out of publication, you could download the parts lists for that and then individually piecemeal compile and buy all of those pieces via BrickLink. And Lego said, "Hey, sounds like a business we should be in." And so they bought the site. And one of the cool things to come out of that site is now they have a crowdfunded campaign. So this is different than Lego Ideas. Lego Ideas was a place where people could submit designs, and Lego would look at the votes. If a design got over like 10,000 votes or so, they would then take a look and go through a review process to see, okay, can we purchase the rights to this IP, like whether it's Big Bang Theory or Back to the Future, and can we make a limited run because we know there is interest in the marketplace for a DeLorean, Lego set, and they've published now dozens and dozens of Lego idea sets, and usually they're a little more limited edition than some of the more big franchise ones. But now there's a tier that's even more limited than that, and that's on the BrickLink Designer Program, where people upload their designs, and they're literally doing these timed crowdfunding campaigns. Still, it's all like pre-approved by Lego because they'll be packaged and sold. But starting today, if you're listening to this on July 1st, you can go to bricklink.com, and they're only doing for a select number of these designs that are production ready, including like a particle accelerator. There's a castle in the forest. There's a Legend of Bionicle. The Pursuit of Flight one is one of there's an automata of 2 flying biplanes. They're only making 5,000 of these, so I suspect they'll go very quickly. But I have my eye on the Pursuit of Flight from JK Brickworks. That's a designer he did the Lego automata that Adam built of the guy pushing the Sisyphus, pushing
So
the
these are
boulder
the
up the hill.
MOC folks
Yes,
are like
yes,
showing up in
yeah,
here. Okay.
yeah, exactly. So a lot of the very talented fan designers have submitted their designs to now BrickLink, and this is just another way for you to get a beautiful custom design thing. You can see the list of like all these designs they have in the works of they're testing the builds and refining the builds, but things that you'll never find in a Lego store, right? Even the Lego idea stuff will pop up in the Lego store, but this is just fan to fan, and they're doing these Lego Ideas 10K, the projects that have reached the 10K mark on Lego Ideas, a limited run of them.
So
So check that out.
do these folks have to follow the rules of the master builders?
I think they still, I don't know, but I think because they're submitting them through Lego Ideas,
Mhm.
they still do, right?
Okay.
Because their hope is still for these to, at some point, if they weren't just put on a BrickLink on the crowdfund campaign, they would have done it as a Lego Ideas thing. So they would have
Mhm.
had to follow the rules to
Okay.
get that in the store. And then maybe the packaging will be different. Like they might not get full, print and press instruction manual package. It might just be baggies with a generic box. I don't know what the actual distribution is going to be, but if it's going to be new parts and kitted out parts, depending on what the pricing is, which I think will be announced on July 1st. That's what I want.
Maybe I've just experienced too much scalping of PlayStation 5s and RTX 3080s this year, but this just reeks of eBay resellers to me, and people buying them up and then hoarding them and then dropping them back on the market slowly. As cool as it is.
Well, Lego's secondary market, I mean, especially when sets retire, you see those prices shoot up. And so I think that's happening now with the production set. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, like I didn't know about this until Norm brought it up. So, but of course, hardcore Lego folks might.
What I think they're hoping for is there won't be a secondary market because this won't have the pomp and circumstance and the grandeur of the formal box or something, right? Like some people hold Lego sets to a higher ideal because there's they collect all the packaging and everything goes around it. If this is a way to promote BrickLink as a way to part out and get the pieces and reuse pieces for sets, then presumably the idea is once these 5,000 sell out, you'll still be able to queue up all the pieces you need to all the 500 pieces you need to build it. So to make one of these just through BrickLink, right? Because they own the system and it's got to be built into the system. It just won't be a part of that first run production ready run. At that point, what's the benefit of having the first run thing? I mean, sure, if someone wants to pay a premium to get something issued the first run, whatever. But if I just want the thing, you can always go to BrickLink and part it out yourself.
Do you know what kind of kickback the designers get from these?
I don't.
I'd love to know.
Very good question.
I mean, it's not if they're doing a real limited number of them. I don't. Maybe it's not that much money, but
I don't think they get anything. My suspicion
getting exposure.
Yeah, right. They get the exposure. Like Lego, it's their IP. So these are not master builders in the master builder system, right? So like, I don't think they can technically because they're not employees of Lego. They're not paid a flat rate for the designer commission. They just want to see these things out there. I think they should be paid for them. I think, Lego should, but Lego has an in-house system of designers anyway, right?
Yeah.
And like there are many, many more fan designers out there than Lego can support. But they want to support the community of like people doing their things, and this is a way, as fans of those fan designers, I'm happy this program exists.
All right. Well, we'll see today. Today when this airs,
Yeah.
how well these sell.
Speaking of crowdfunding campaigns, I'm gonna give a shout out. When we visited Weta Workshop, one of the artists there is Johnny Fraser Allen. He's the tabletop sculptor guy. We did a video, I think it's like 3 million views now, of Adam and Johnny talking about his basically his custom tabletop terrain that he built. Like he did this giant like sprawling fantasy terrain from medieval town to forest to castle. And he and his partners had done a Kickstarter campaign previously called Hagglethorn Hollow, where people could buy these modular kits so you can do your tabletop D&D or your HeroClix style tabletop gaming with his terrain, with forest creatures and taverns and towers and mazes. Like Labyrinth was the whole thing he did. But now there's a campaign on Kickstarter for Hagglethorn Hollow. You can search. I'll put in the link in the description. But for the STLs, so if you have a 3D printer, FDM or resin printer, and you want to print your own beautiful modular terrain back, I've already supported it. I think it's like US, it's like $80, and they've unlocked like half of their stretch goals, so you get a ton of STLs to print stuff out, and they're fun to paint as well. So check that out. I'll put a link in the description below. Last bits of news. YouTube TV, I'm going to call them out. We want to talk about being held hostage by a streaming service. I'm being held hostage by YouTube TV right now because they launched at $35 a month and now they're at $60 a month. And they announced a 4K option, which will allow offline viewing plus unlimited family members to watch. But for 4K, another $20 a month. Insane.
So you're at $85 or $80?
$80 a month for YouTube TV, which doesn't include HBO or Showtime or anything. Just your sports, just your streaming on your phone. They have a great phone app and they have a great TV app, but that's cable pricing. Like at that point, like they're pricing themselves. It's like someone at Google is like, well, I don't want to be in this business anymore. Let's price ourselves out of this business by jacking the price up for that much. That's crazy.
Yep.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, that seems excessive. I have the premium where I don't see ads, but I mean that's like $12 a month or something. So
I'm just curious, if they had only raised it $5, then
no, well then I would have made then I would have canceled Apple TV Plus today. Just put that $5 toward UTTV.
Oh wow. Okay.
The problem is 4K, even for broadcast, not enough broadcast networks do 4K. And when you're talking about streaming, the bit rates are still so low that I don't see the benefits. Like they're really selling the idea that sports is a thing that you want to see 4K at. But at that point, I'd rather have higher frame rate. And in terms of other broadcast content, if you're talking about an upsell and getting new standards for broadcast, HDR is something I'd rather see as a new standard than 4K. Like 1080 HDR, which absolutely is a thing, because HDR is just another filter, another data pass through the streaming service. I would rather see movies upscaled locally to 4K, but with the HDR information for my TV, than try to cram in 4K worth of the extra pixels, but at just marginally higher bit rate.
Could we continue to nerd out on this for just one more minute? Because what you just described of HDR, I didn't understand. So I actually don't know how. I'm very familiar with older signals, but when it comes to the newer HDR 4K signals, I'm not. So
yes,
is it currently like the old signals? Like each pixel was only had like 8-bit depth, right? It was like a RGB. Each one it was 8 bits. So is HDR not higher bit depth per pixel?
No, think of it almost like in the video game world, a depth map. It's like an extra texture that goes on top in the metadata file, and that's encoded. So it's as opposed to a separate. People who work in video production, please correct me if I'm wrong, but as opposed to a separate encode, where like your TV is pulling down, the 4K version or the 4K plus HDR version or the 1080 version or the 1080 plus HDR version. It's the resolution and bitrate, and then HDR is a separate pass that you also get that then you decode. That's baked into the file. If you have we're talking about a package, like an MKV package, but it's independent of resolution. Dolby Vision is separate because Dolby Vision, I think, has to be 4K. Like that's the way they're standard. So when you see Dolby Vision, it's 4K HDR, but theoretically, there's nothing preventing you from having 1080 HDR as well. Yeah, and the extra information, I don't think it's that much more in terms of storage.
Huh. Wow, I'd love to look into that more and find out exactly how much more. That's it. So it's not like another. There's data per pixel still, right? With HDR.
I'm not sure exactly how it's formatted and how it's encoded, but in the video editing, I think is the source has to be that, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever editing it needs to, they need to be editing in HDR to output it. There's no up converting to HDR. That's like you can. I think TVs can do some type of dynamic, just increase the brightness of anything that's bright and evaluate on a per frame basis. But because it's done in the edit process, the data is all. It's just like telling TV what values to put.
It's interesting
in terms of luminosity.
When they went from black and white to color back in the day, it was like the color signal was not much more information. It was in fact, if you just look at the chroma signal, it's like this blurry mess. So it wasn't like they doubled or tripled or anything like that. It was like a very little bit more information in order to add color to that signal. And most of the information is still that black and white raw signal. So it sounds like HDR might be kind of, comparable in terms of like not adding that much more data on top of the signal.
Right, because if you look at an encoded image, right, it's what I get over my like the file is going to be the same on a per pixel basis. It's just what it needs to be captured at. Like the depth comes in when in the capture, so that you have the bit depth in the capture, but in the display, the TV's going to display what it can display. And I think HDR has to move more with brightness than it does with color depth. Again, I want to hear from someone who has actually edited in HDR, but like I find more value to that, especially in streaming, than I do in the bump up to 4K.
Well, that's gonna be an extra $10 a month.
Yeah. And I think that does it for the general news. We're going to do a little bit of VR stuff. Road to VR is a really interesting hands-on they did with Vario. Remember Vario, the company that made the VR headset with a high resolution 2 panels, basically one standard LCD panel and then a high resolution panel that they combine. They do a composite of just in your center of the field of view. So it's basically baked in foveated rendering, right? It's hard foveated rendering in a physical form factor. They also now have a service that allows their headset to scan the world, your environment, as in real time as you're wearing a headset, and then someone else in another headset then to see your avatar in the actual environment that you're in, and vice versa. So fast photogrammetry, basically real time, photogrammetry. I don't know if they use time of flight sensors with LiDAR built in, but we've seen how fast you can map a world with even like a phone, right? With LiDAR on a phone, but to build that and to have localized, textured environments and geometry for someone that seems like a thing they're pushing for businesses for meetings, for demonstrations, and do that quickly without having to do hand modeling of environments. Seems like a cool thing for VR.
How is that different than what Oculus has done with like the iPads that we saw a couple years ago at Oculus Connect, where they hold them up and they see the players inside the virtual environments?
Good question. That was doing mapping, but not textures, right? That was the only thing that was textured, that was captured, was the person. And that was doing real-time kind of green screening, I guess, of a person and using the LiDAR sensors to pull out the player, and then kind of mapping the real-world geometry, but placing the player in where they would be in the digital environment. Here, it's creating the digital environment in real time based on what that person, and it's done from an inside out. So when the person wears a headset, you're mapping, your world quickly,
Hmm.
so that when someone sees you, whether they're in VR or they're watching a window, they see your avatar in the room you're actually in because you're mapping the world from your field of view. And they're constantly updating that as well. But what you're talking about is very similar to what Live just put out. You know, that company that taps into, that's done like the mixed reality phone apps and did a way for you to calibrate your camera with your touch controllers to do Beat Saber videos. In fact, some of the Beat Saber like trailers in the early days were done using this. They just put out an iOS app that allows you with your phone to do exactly that, to film someone playing Beat Saber on your phone, to do a quick calibration with the controller, and without any green screen, to then isolate a person, with some soft edge blending, but to place them in Beat Saber. And there's a short list of supported games, like Space Pirate Trainer is one of them, Beat Saber is one of them. Games that they need to build in some mixed reality support for the extra camera angle. But basically, on the phone screen, you see the digital environment, Beat Saber map, Space Pirate Trainer map, and then also the player, and then you can move your phone around and see their environment. It was cool. It's like a lens into the virtual world.
I love it.
Right.
I've
Yeah.
always wanted this from day one with the Quest, because when you are watching people and helping people, get acquainted with the environment, how great would it be to have this universally and just be able to see their UI and walk over with your phone and see into their world. Love it. I love that we're on the way.
I mean, I don't think you even need to have this necessarily tied to a person, but you think of any type of AR type game where the camera app or their phone becomes a lens into like a metaverse, right?
Yeah.
It becomes a viewfinder into looking in the metaverse. Like think of the escape room applications, the kind of like walking around the world. Not only are you talking about grafting, as opposed to the traditional way of thinking of AR, of imposing digital elements into a pass through into the city streets and city signs and things like that. It literally becomes what's hidden, behind it, the upside down that you can peer into, right? From the Stranger Things analogy. Yeah. It's super cool stuff, and it's all happening now in real time. You guys play Firewatch?
Yes.
I tried.
You
I
get
really
into
enjoyed it. Yeah.
Really?
I guess I had the same problem with Firewatch that my son had with Loki, just a little too slow. But I know I'm probably in the minority, because that game, I've never heard anybody say a negative thing about it. It's great.
It's well, maybe it's a time to revisit that game, because modders, and this is one of the great things about the VR community, they've taken these traditional flat screen games, built in Unity or Unreal or whatever, and they found ways to port them to VR with motion control, with hand support. And Firewatch is a game with a VR mod in the works. So you can play that game. I don't know how well. I mean, so much of that game is about the environment. I mean, Will, right, famously did his first episode of Foo
That's right.
in Firewatch, right, and recreate it. But he had to manually take all the assets and work with Campus Santo to rebuild that environment in the Foo engine. But this is using the opposite way around. It's changing the cameras and the interaction and allowing you to interact with that with motion controllers and a VR headset, which could be really cool. There's some, like what was the other game? The one about returning to your house,
Gone Home.
on vacation. Gone Home, right? Like Firewatch and Gone Home have a shared DNA in that, like, there are some nice thematic elements that get revealed as you play the game, but you bring a lot to it as a player, a lot of expectations, because you feel like there's a tension in being in those environments and not knowing what kind of game you're playing, whether it's a suspense or horror game or something.
Yeah, I might try Firewatch again, because you can actually change the outcome of the game depending on how you answer the radio. And so if you play it again, it might just have different answers. So
that's cool. VR modders, famously, one of the first VR mods for a traditional game was Alien Isolation. And the modder who ported Alien Isolation and Halo to VR is now hired by Microsoft. and part of 343 Industries. So I don't know what this means for Microsoft's ambitions in VR. They have not said anything. They're the company that seems to be the game company that seems to be least interested in VR from an announcement standpoint. But I would love to see a VR option for some of these games. A Halo game, right? There's what was that game that came out just recently? That's like asymmetrical procedural, like temple jumping game or a platformer. You might know this, Steve.
I don't know, actually. Sorry.
I saw some people posting on social media about it. Like it's a platformer with like grappling and it's a game that it's like I look at it and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Is it in VR? And it's not. I'm like, okay, I'm much less interested in it now because it's the potential when I see a game that's like a platformer and it has interesting movement mechanics, whether it's grabbing or some type of a rope system, like that could totally work with the headset. It's been proven with games like Cloudlands and Sprint Vector and all that stuff. All right, we're gonna move to our big story. Whoa, we are almost out of time because that's how little we care about this. Windows 11. Microsoft announced Windows 11. If you're in the Insider program, you can actually download it today to try out. It's the first. They've been Windows 10 for so long now. It seems like a more visual overhaul than anything. The big controversial thing, we'll start with that, is even though it will be a free upgrade coming later this year for owners of Windows 10, supported devices is a very limited number, and including Microsoft's own Surface devices, if it wasn't made in the past like 2 years, it doesn't have that TPM chip, it will not run Windows 11.
What is a TPM chip?
It's a good question.
Trusted platform module or something like that.
It's some kind of DRM check thing.
It's basically like locking the hardware. It's like, hey, it's prevents some of the side attacks on hardware like that you saw in the Intel processors. I think this whole thing is really about security, right? And securing the Windows platform. And maybe this is like Microsoft's way of just saying, hey, you know what? People always talk about, their machine that got a virus or was hacked or everything. This is a way of kind of locking out any hardware that has these vulnerabilities, saying this is the way forward, right? So we have a more secure platform moving from now on.
They have a lot of games integration with the Xbox stuff. New Xbox app is going to be more tightly integrated. Game Pass, being so successful on the game side is something that they'll probably bleed into Windows. They're going to take advantage. I mean, for people streaming, right? They're most likely have Windows systems, and they also just released like iOS support for streaming the Game Pass. So, they're doing a lot of work on both, have had a lot of success on both the dedicated hardware and locally played stuff, but also now a subscription service like Games Pass, but also allowing for streaming from Xbox to other devices in your house. And I'm sure they want to really leverage that. There's Microsoft Teams integration. We won't talk about that much, Steve, in present company. Oh, what a faux pas. But there's also Android support. And Android app support is weird because it comes not through Google Play Store, but through Amazon Play Store, Amazon's. So this is like Microsoft wanting to play friendly with Google, but not also wanting to give in to allowing Google to take their cut via the Play Store in the Microsoft ecosystem. But they've publicly said they will allow side loading of Android apps. So someone could theoretically side load the Play Store, a version of the Play Store, and that then opens up all of Android onto Windows 11.
But there's a weird thing with that because people are using APKs to sideload, but starting next month for the Play Store, you're gonna have to use the Google App package, right? So who knows what's gonna happen with all of that?
Yeah,
I gotta run, guys.
Oh, all right. Good luck on your your adventures. We'll talk about what you're doing next week. We're gonna wrap it up then. At that. Oh my gosh, yeah. Went by way too quickly, but it was fun catching up with you guys. Steve, we'll have to see you in person sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. And you know what? I'll just play a musical interlude after the fact in the edit. But you can always find us always on Tested. Steve, where can people find you?
Stephen P. Lin on Twitter, and check out the Video Game History Foundation at gamehistory.org.
All right. Jeremy, I'll see you hopefully next week. Have a great July 4th weekend.
You too.
And good luck on your next immediate venture.
Thanks.
Can't wait to hear about it. All right. See everyone next week. Bye.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Is it even not even your favorite Mario game?
Oh, God, no. No. Whose favorite Mario game is Super Mario Odyssey?
There are many people who say it's the best Mario game.
What are you, Donald Trump?
Wow.
There are many
I don't
people.
even understand that insult. Does he hate Mario
No,
games?
but it's like, speak for yourself. Is it the best? Okay.
It's not my favorite.
Okay. I didn't mean to call you Donald Trump.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. The first purge is coming real soon.